That is President Trump signing this document. It hasn't officially been released. There he is, the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. Luckily, we've got our wonderful T-Live function, which we've all been glued to throughout this morning. Justin Sink, our man, our White House reporter, has summed it up beautifully in 4 points. I'm just going to say it, just so we all know what's on this document, or at least what we know so far. Point one, the US and North Korea committing to establishing a new US-DPRK relations in accordance with the desire of peoples of the two countries for peace and prosperity. That's point one. Point two, the US and North Korea will join the efforts to build a lasting and stable peace regime on the Korean peninsula. Point three, which is the big one, reaffirming the April 27th, 2018 Panmunjom Declaration. The DPRK commits to work towards complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. And point four, the US and the DPRK committing to recovering prisoners of war missing in action remains, including the immediate repatriation of those already identified. Marty Schenker, as I said, is here in London. It's a pleasure. Bloomberg's chief content officer. Great to see you in the flesh. Marty, what are we to make of those 4 points, particularly point number three, which is the biggie, isn't it? The commitment to working towards complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, something that's been made before.
Yeah, it's been made before, and not just by the current leader, but the previous leader of Korea, and only to fall through. What's interesting to me is that they've agreed to work towards. You don't need work towards. They don't commit to complete denuclearization. They just commit to work towards it. So I think ultimately the devil is in the details. This document probably does not have a lot of the details how this is actually going to happen. And that'll take weeks, months, even years to work out.
It absolutely seems a little bit too short to contain all of those details. Otherwise, we would have seen a stack of 1,000 pages, Marty, on the desks.
Absolutely.
But isn't working towards denuclearization, isn't some kind of level of goodwill and communication at least a step in the right direction? Or is this regime in North Korea really not to be trusted?
Well, I think it absolutely is in the right direction. You know, when you think about where we were a year ago, it's a stark contrast to the war of words between the two leaders. But make no mistake, I mean, Donald Trump wanted a win here for both domestic and international reasons. It's interesting to me that he prays on Kim Jong-un when, you know, just a few days ago he criticized our ally, Justin Trudeau, so starkly. I mean, the contrast can't be understated. And it'll be interesting also, this press conference that he gives, how much he talks about the agreement and how much he talks about his achieving the agreement.
You wonder also if Trump made any concessions, any sanctions?
Yeah, there's
Marty.
nothing.
I mean, there's so many unanswered questions, which he's going to be drilled on, isn't he, when we get that news conference?
That's right. I mean, what did North Korea get from signing this document? I mean, it obviously they got the stage of actually meeting the U.S. president. They're going to get an invitation to the White House, but the economy is in shambles. The people are challenged in terms of food, and there's nothing in this document, at least in the headlines that I see, that relaxes the sanctions.
There are interesting parallels here between, in some ways, you know, the president will be concerned, as you said, about giving us the details, we hope, from the agreement, what that does for America. He's been on this America First campaign since before the election. On the other hand, he is often concerned about touting his own achievements, and that's another thing we'll be watching for, how much of his time he devotes to that at his press conference. I wonder about Kim Jong-un, how much his concern is for the economic well-being of his people, and how much of his concern is for the health of and safety of his regime. Marty, how do you think the U.S. could guarantee could guarantee that to the North Korean leader, because as poor a record as North Korea has in keeping its word on committing to denuclearization, the U.S. has a pretty bad record of keeping its word to the leaders and to the regimes that it convinces to give up some power, much like Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah, the specter of Libya and what happened to Muammar Gaddafi hovers over this whole agreement. But I do think, given Donald Trump's history and his rhetoric, he is not in any way interested in regime change. He has constantly beaten the table on how our Mideast policy has resulted in chaos when we did endeavor to try and effect regime change in that region. So aside from making a commitment towards North Korean security, I don't see how, as a practical matter, we can guarantee it. And no one really knows what's going on within the North Korean political sphere, and certainly there's nothing the U.S. can do to guarantee his security.